The thing, both distress and success find the problem in choosing to judge God instead of allowing God to judge us. Distress judges God's goodness. How could you let this happen to me? How can you be a good God and I'm in pain? Distress wants to judge God's goodness. Success wants to challenge God's right to rule us. Who are you to make rules over my success? I should be able to get what I want because I'm me. Either way, we end up starting to judge God versus the other way around. The way to overcome this temptation, the way that Joseph, I think, overcomes it, is to make a huge shift. And here's the shift. To shift from being circumstances driven to God directed. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Instead of being circumstances driven, meaning orienting ourselves around getting what we want and avoiding what we don't. That's circumstances driven. I'm gonna order my entire life around getting what I want and not getting what I don't want. To being God directed, meaning I'm gonna orient my entire life around getting God and living out of that presence. Totally different. Let's marry that to what we looked at before, the 6 major desires that people have. Here's what you'll notice. When we look at our circumstances-driven life, those 6 things are what we want. Circumstantially, we say, that's what I want. I want to be prosperous and popular and have prestige and power. I want to have a fun life and I want to be protected. I want all of those things. But here's the thing, in a God-directed life, here's the amazing part of that. He doesn't promise us any of them. What do you want to do about that? You say, gosh, that's kind of a bummer. But here's what he does promise, and these are all promises in Scripture. God never promises all of us are gonna be wealthy and luxurious and live in the lap of luxury. What he does promise is we're gonna have abundance. Here's the catch. Joseph had abundance in prison. Joseph didn't arrive at abundance in the palace. He arrived at it in prison because he had more than he needed to do what God was asking him to do in the circumstances he found himself. And he needed more in the palace than he did in prison because the job was bigger. And here's the other part. When you end up in the palace and you have like way more than you need, it's not for you. It's not about you. You've been blessed to be a blessing. We have abundance, sometimes in small measure, sometimes in amazing measure. But when we have it in amazing measure, he was not in a palace in order to be a celebrity. He was not in a palace in order to gain great wealth. He was in a palace to end a famine and keep the world alive. Different job. Popularity. You may not be the person that's the most popular guy that ever walks in a room and everybody says your name and points at you and laughs when you come in the room, but God promises you community, significant relationships with him and his people. You may never have prestige of where everybody says, ooh and ah, and look at what that person accomplished, but you will have a life of purpose because God, when you serve him, brings purpose to our life. Power is an illusion, man. Let me just start there. Human power and authority is an illusion. One doctor's appointment can change your whole life, and you can't do a thing about it. The stock market can crash, and you can't do a thing about it. You can have a relationship walk out the door, or someone can pass away that you never imagined would, and your whole life can change. Human power is a bad illusion. It doesn't exist. But the presence of God is very real. And when the presence of God is in your life, there is a power and authority that doesn't rest with you, but rests with God, that you can trust and you can partner with. Pleasure. Nothing wrong with having fun, but that's not what God promises. He doesn't promise that externally you're gonna have nothing but fun. What he promises is shalom, that there's a deep inner peace and joy that you're gonna have, that the world is right, you're right, and everything is right in it. You know, God never promised he's gonna protect you. He didn't protect Joseph from going to jail. He promises to deliver us. It's really different, isn't it? You see, I want to be protected. I want to say, God's gonna tell me, oh, nothing's ever gonna happen to you. It's not true. But when things do happen to me, God joins me in the midst of wherever that circumstance is and marries himself to my hip and says, all right, boy, let's go. You and me, we're getting out of here. Let's get after it. That's deliverance. That's what God promises. So if you want the things on the left, I can't help you. You want the things on the right, there's only one way to get it. And that's through the very presence of God.